the echoing town of Shadow Creek. Have you ever wondered what happens when a horror story isn't just a legend, but the truth etched into the very air itself? For years, the story of Shadow Creek was considered just a myth, a town in the American Midwest, abandoned overnight. People say it was a curse, a plague that made everyone vanish. My name is Clara. I'm a researcher of urban legends, and today I'm here to debunk one more of these tales. Or at least that's what I thought. Part 1, The Legend and the Mission. Shadow Creek, Michigan, doesn't exist on modern maps. In the 1970s, it was a small town of about 500 people. But on a morning in 1978, the entire town was empty. The houses were intact, the dinner tables were set, the cars were parked. The only thing left was silence. The local legend speaks of an echo curse, a force that consumes the past. I, however, have a different theory. My research in old newspapers suggested an unusual influenza epidemic, which caused an emergency evacuation. I decided to record this episode of my podcast, Debunking the Unknown, directly from the town center. I stood in what used to be the main square, next to an old bandstand. The air was thick, smelling of damp earth and something else, a floral perfume that was strangely familiar, but seemed out of place. I began to walk, narrating into my portable microphone. Look at this. The park bench, the candy store over there. Everything is exactly as people left it. There are no signs of a struggle, no sign of a hurried departure. That's why my theory makes sense. An orderly evacuation. No legends, just a silent tragedy. And that's when I heard the first sound. From a distance, coming from the direction of the school, I heard what sounded like children's laughter. Soft, distant laughter, as if they were playing in the schoolyard. I thought it was an echo or the wind. The sound was ethereal, almost imperceptible. I continued. The town is a kind of time capsule, completely untouched. It's spooky, but not in a supernatural way. As I approached what was once a church, the sound changed. I could hear a faint murmur, what seemed to be a sermon. Indistinct words, as if coming from a radio that was poorly tuned. I forced myself to ignore it, attributing everything to my brain, trying to fill the void with familiar noises. Part 2, The Discovery of the Recording. I continued my way to the old convenience store. The bell on the door chimed with a surprisingly loud and clear clang. Inside, dust covered everything in a thick layer. There were products on the shelves. Cans of soup, hardened candies. It was like stepping into a black and white photograph. Behind the counter, I found a small wooden box. Inside, an old reel-to-reel recorder and an audio tape. There was a label, Last Record J. Thompson, Mayor. My heart began to beat faster. This didn't fit my theory. No mayor would have time to record an audio diary during an emergency evacuation. I put the tape on the recorder. A static sound filled the air, followed by a trembling voice. August 20th, 1978. This me, Mayor Thompson. The whole town. I can't find them. I was in the square. They were laughing. And then the sound began. The humming. It's coming from the sky. His voice faltered. It's not a plague. It's not a curse. It's the echoes. I started hearing them yesterday, after the first person vanished. The sounds of the past. My wife's voice. The children's laughter. People didn't disappear. They were consumed. They're trapped, reliving their final moments. He continued, his voice growing more and more terrified. He mentioned the door chimes, the church murmur, the children's laughter. He was describing the same sounds I had heard. And then he said something that made me stop. The echoes are getting stronger. They're becoming visible. Oh my God. They're looking up. All of them. They're looking. The recording was cut off by a muffled scream, followed by a horrifying sound, like a vacuum sucking the air, a dense and heavy sound. And then silence, just the sound of the recorder turning. Part 3, the final chapter. I looked out the store window. The square that I was sure was empty now held ghostly, translucent, and opaque figures with a faint glow. There were men and women, children. They moved, but they weren't really there. They were laughing, talking, waving to each other. The children's laughter from the school. The church murmur. They were the echoes. The whole town was reliving its last day. My theory was completely wrong. It wasn't an evacuation. It was an event. Capture. Terrified, I hid behind the counter, watching. I could hear them, the voices of the past, which were now the voices of the present. And then, the mayor's last line from the journal returned to my mind. They're looking up. I forced myself to look at the sky. Above the clouds, I saw a rift, a black, pulsating hole, with edges and shades of purple and gray. The hole didn't emit light, but it seemed to suck in light itself. The humming that the mayor mentioned on the tape. I could hear it now, a low, vibrating sound that made my teeth chatter. The black hole in the sky was responsible. The town hadn't been abandoned. It had been consumed by a hole in reality. What was left were the echoes of their final moments, trapped in an eternal loop. But then, something changed. The ghostly figures in the square stopped laughing and talking. They stopped moving and stood still, motionless. And then, one by one, each head turned. Not to the hole in the sky, to the store window, to me. The ghostly faces became cold, and their mouths opened, emitting no sound. The mayor's recording was clear. The echoes weren't just memories. They were trapped, and now they knew there was a new person to join them. The humming in the sky became a roar. The air grew ice cold. The store door slowly opened, the bell chiming loudly. The librarian trapped me with a story, but the town of Shadow Creek trapped me with the truth. And now the humming is coming for me. My final moments are being recorded. What would you do if the story you were investigating suddenly became your own?